Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church.
Welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast. I'm Carmen Bauer, the Director of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sioux City.
And I am Dawn Prosser. I'm Director of Communications for the Diocese.
We are most grateful that you took time out of your day to spend some time with us. We are happy to welcome back Kelly Kohout, Director of Education Services for our Diocesan Catholic Schools Office. In addition to working with our superintendent in our 15 diocesan school systems, she is lending her experience and talents to a national project. Kelly is one of the team members working to rewrite a national assessment, ACRE, measuring the head and heart of youth as it relates to Catholic faith and doctrine, and what that means for Catholic students in our diocese. So welcome back, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you here. Kelly, first of all, can you explain to us, not everyone may know what the ACRE assessment is?
Sure, I'm happy to. And I'm going to read this right from my notes because
Sure.
they say it best. So the National Catholic Education Association, or NCEA, as we all know it, is one of the largest private professional education associations in the world. Since the late 1970s, NCEA has offered assessments designed to strengthen catechetical religious education programs. ACRE stands for the Assessment of Child Youth Religious Education, and helps schools, parishes, and diocesan leaders measure the effectiveness of curriculum and religion programs, as well as how students in grades 5, 8, and 11 internalize and act upon their faith. So in short, that's what...
Perfect.
I guess I could say, in short, it assesses, like you said, the head and the heart of our youth as it relates to Catholic faith and doctrine.
So how has this traditionally been used in Catholic schools, both in the U.S. and in the Diocese of Sioux City?
So ACRE is a voluntary program in some dioceses, and in others it's required or mandated. All of our schools in the Diocese of Sioux City do participate, though. So essentially we take it, and our schools take the ACRE in the spring. So again, grades 5, 8, and 11 in our schools take the assessment. And I don't, it's been happening since I have had this position in the last 8 years. All of our schools have been taking it ever since. I think we'll have to have conversations moving forward. There is a cost associated. So we're changing the assessment a little bit. So it won't just be those 3 grade levels. It will be every grade level from 2nd grade up. So we're going to have conversations. We really haven't had the conversations yet, but we're going to have to on how to move forward because, like I said, there's a cost associated. So we'll have to see where we go with it.
Okay. So you mentioned that it's not mandatory, it's voluntary, depending on the diocese. Do you happen to know, do most dioceses use this assessment?
Most dioceses, I would say, yes, do. I think the criticism was, what are we doing with the data? Mm-hmm. Right? We want to make sure that if we're giving an assessment, we're using that data to make decisions, instructional decisions. And I'm not sure that is fully happening. We've had conversations with our principals in our schools and trying to ensure that happens, but that's the tough part. We don't want to give an assessment if we're not using the data.
And obviously you are using it in the Diocese of Sioux City.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
So what led to rewrite the ACRE assessment? How did those conversations start?
So NCEA has shared over the years, there's been many iterations of this assessment. Initially, our committee was created by the leadership of NCEA, specifically John Galvan. He is the Director of Catechetical Assessments. We were just going to review the current questions for each of the 3 levels and revise any that were unclear or any that maybe even the data revealed that students struggled with. Maybe that was wording, ambiguous answer choices, whatever the case may be. But as we worked through all the questions on day one, the committee, reached a consensus that we needed to rewrite rather than revise. The goal was to create an assessment that uses real-time data insights so that we could measure our students' faith journey. So I believe by rewriting, we did accomplish that goal.
I had as you mentioned, kind of that faith journey. I know a conversation that comes up with the theology teachers in the diocese and yourself as well is, that differentiation between the knowledge about the faith and the participation in the faith and that personal relationship. So is there a transition within the questions of kind of going more from the head knowledge to just kind of that lived experience? Was that already present, or was that a part of the conversation, I guess?
Yes, actually it was. And the ACRE is already split up into two different domains, essentially. There's a cognitive domain and an affective domain. So that cognitive domain is that intellectual faith knowledge, and the affective domain is that questions that are related to personal religious beliefs and attitudes and practices and perceptions. So yes, the assessment already was split up into two different, essentially, domains, asking different questions.
Yeah, I can see both of those being very useful, as you mentioned, utilizing the results of those assessments. So how did you come to be a part of this committee?
Well, Patty actually suggested that this might be something that I would be interested in. She's in a professional learning community with other Catholic superintendents across the country and with some leadership at NCEA. So she learned of this writing team and just asked if I'd be interested. And I jumped at the chance to collaborate with others around the country. It's always great to hear what people are doing in their Catholic schools. We can glean so much information from that brilliance from others that are doing things that we're doing. So it's great to collaborate.
Oh, certainly. And can you give us an idea of some of the geographical locations that are represented on the committee?
Oh gosh, really all over the country. I don't have it listed, but the people that I worked with, they were teachers, principals, NCEA leadership, but really all the way from California to Arlington, Virginia, all the way across the country. Some in the Midwest, others in, trying to think, I think Ohio. There were literally people from all different states.
How many people are on this writing team?
Sounds like a lot. I'd say at least a dozen, about around a dozen. It was interesting because we were all supposed to convene at the NCEA headquarters in Arlington, Virginia for 3 days at the end of July, but there was weather. And so everyone's flights were either canceled or delayed. And there were two of us who couldn't make it to Arlington with all the flight changes. So we ended up having to Zoom in with our colleagues. So I guess the power of technology. Here we go.
Yeah.
It was a long few days in front of the computer, and I kind of missed out on that social aspect and relationship building during dinner and meals. But it was a good alternative given the circumstances. So I feel like I kind of missed out on that piece where everyone was together in person. But we had a great team that worked great collaboratively.
So before we kind of get into some of the nitty gritty of how you worked on this, so how many, you talked about the two domains, the cognitive and the affective. Is it like the Iowa Test of Basic Skills where you're filling in ovals? Is it more of essay? And like how many questions and how long does it take the students to complete the assessment currently?
I don't know exactly how many questions. Our team didn't really get into the logistics of that. We worked with Renaissance, who is kind of a powerhouse in ed tech, whole child. And so they were kind of going to take the questions that we wrote and take that and put it into the assessment form. But yes, it will be a type of assessment where kids are just choosing an answer. There are no essay questions.
Yeah, that'd be hard to compile that data, especially if an entire school system.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that the 3 days you're supposed to go to Arlington and that didn't pan out. So can you just kind of describe a little bit, like, what did this look like for you to be working on this? Did you have like homework assignments you took home with you and you worked on questions 1 through 5, or or do you have little subgroups? How did that really work?
Sure. Our team was organized into writing cohorts. So we had grades 2 through 5, which was elementary, and then grades 6 through 8, which was middle, and grades 9 through 12, which was high school. And like I said, we mentioned they wanted the voice of various regions represented. So our deadline was October 31, 2025, and that never changed. So even after we started that first day, reading through the questions, trying to revise, and realizing we had to change the scope of the work and really rewrite, our deadline never changed. So October 31st this was a quick turnaround since we started the end of July. So it was pretty arduous work. We were talking weekly, meeting, I don't know, maybe bi-weekly. We each had sections to complete. So we each took different sections of questions to write. And then we came back together and would discuss those. We'd review each other's work. We'd use Google. We were using Google Sheets. So we had all the questions written into Google Sheets where we could review each other's work. We could leave comments and notes. So it was really productive. We got really good at that part, that collaborating piece. And you really have to be vulnerable. People were afraid a little bit to give comments on other people's writing, but we knew that, we really just wanted the best work to come out of it. So you just have to be a little vulnerable and understand that some of your there's going to be comments on some of your work and you're going to want to change it. So I felt like we had such a great group of people who were willing to just dive in and be vulnerable and talk about our work and revise as we went. So it was a good team.
Okay. So on your team, again, just picturing how this would work, did someone have the final say, or did you just come up with consensus on this question here? We all come to consensus that what we have on the Google Sheets, this works, or was there some overarching leader that said, yes, no, fix it?
So it was really collaborative. Our groups of, I started off in the middle grade group, 6th through 8th. And then as we went, we took kind of the expertise of the people we had working with us. And there were already many people working on 6th through 8th. So then I shifted to elementary. So I got to work with two different groups and two different groups of people, which was great. We would write 3 questions actually, so that we'd have Renaissance could then take the questions and put that into a test group. So then they would have schools piloting these questions. So they would get the data back and review the data so they could see then if there were questions that maybe had verbiage that was, not clear. Or if there was a question that had just a really easy answer that everybody got that answer correct. So Renaissance was going to take those 3 questions that we wrote for each and then put that into this pilot group and go from there really to kind of come up with that final assessment for each grade span.
And that's all happened, all the...
That has happened. Yes. Our group finished writing the questions. They had another group prepared to review all of our work and offer suggestions. And then the work is now it's all with Renaissance and it's kind of on their plate to create the assessment and distribute it to those pilot schools.
So when do you anticipate them being done with the final assessment?
They are saying that for the 26-27 school year that we will have the new assessment for 2nd grade and up and running for all schools. So that's exciting. It was, like I said, it was a really quick turnaround, but we worked hard to get it done.
That does sound like a very quick turnaround, especially when you're wordsmithing and
exactly
testing and going back and forth. And was it kind of what you anticipated? The process?
No, I didn't anticipate rewriting the entire assessment. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you that. I think the people on the committee were kind of figuring we'd go and look at, the questions. Our main objective really was to ensure like we had age appropriate language without diluting the language of the church. We wanted to ensure that the correct answer wasn't too obvious, avoid language that uses like clues that the student, they might automatically know the answer is false. Things like only and just, those were words we avoided. Another thing was we were just reviewing really to ensure that the answer sets were parallel in structure. Sometimes you'd see that the answer was really long, the correct answer, and the false answers were shorter. So trying to keep those answers sets, parallel in structure was important. So that was our initial thought going in, is we were just revising. We were just looking at the questions and revising to see if there were any issues. So the scope changed quickly after that first day to rewriting the entire assessment. So it was a big job, but we were all in. We knew that this was for a good cause, and we wanted to be able to kind of have that real-time data. They're hoping to have a dashboard so schools can go in with the results and see the dashboard. The initial assessment you don't get student-specific data back, you get group data, but moving forward, they will have student-specific data. So that was one of the big goals. It was all for the good of the cause, so we were all in.
Did they happen to mention, had this ever been rewritten before, and do you know how long it's been, if so?
I don't. I'm thinking I saw somewhere in 2014, but I know there's been many iterations of it over the years.
Just keep adjusting, tweaking, and
exactly
making it the best it can be. So will there be any changes to how the test is administered? I know you mentioned that including all the grades, second grade and up, instead of just breaking that down. Any other changes to how that might be applied?
Really, it will be just the grade level piece is the biggest change. We also making sure that we're hoping that schools buy in and want to give the assessment second grade and up. We also, let me think, they are adding a Spanish version of the assessment with integrated accommodations for students, so text to speech, speech to text. Because Renaissance is such a powerhouse, they have the ability to integrate these powerful tools right into the assessment. So I think that is another big and really positive change in the way it will be administrated.
I'm glad to hear about the Spanish edition, because yes, those little ones learn the language so quickly, but you don't know what stage of life they're in when they're taking that exam.
Exactly, for sure.
They could be brand new. And I hear stories about that all the time. Yeah, I came to the States, I didn't know any English, and now I'm getting my doctorate in something, and so yeah. So what would you say is the goal of the new and improved ACRE assessment now that it's complete and Renaissance is fine-tuning it for use? What would you say that your goal was?
I think as it relates to our diocese and our schools, since being part of this project, I was made aware of a USCCB document. It's called the Handbook on Catechetical Accompaniment Process. So it's a mouthful.
Yes.
But this handbook, it came out in 2024, is what we were using essentially, the goals in these handbooks we were using to write the ACRE questions. So initially, this document was put out for publishing companies to use to base their curriculum on. But schools weren't really aware, and diocesan leadership wasn't really aware of this document with the goals. So we, now that we know that there are these goals that we use to write the ACRE, that publishing companies are going to use for their curriculum, our end goal is for our students to encounter the living God through Christ. So we really want to integrate. The USCCB had brought a team together to write these goals for that goal, encountering God through Christ. So we want to be sure that our school curriculum, our standards are based on that as well. So in addition to being on this writing committee, Patty and I had convened a committee to revise our religion standards, our theology standards, a year ago. We had done a lot of work with the expertise of our teachers, and And we now have this new document with all these goals in it, grade span goals. So we really changed the trajectory of our committee meetings. We are now focused on these goals. We have this in common. Before, the ACRE was kind of written with random questions of things. I'm not saying random questions, but questions based on what we thought schools were teaching in certain grade levels. And now we have this document with these goals that are specific to grade spans. So we are revising our theology standards based on these goals. So everything will be in alignment. Where our standards will be in alignment with the curriculum put out by publishing companies, which is in alignment with the ACRE. So I think it just that alignment will help teachers, who are on the ground with our students, to really focus and hone in on those concepts that students might be missing, and where in their curriculum then they can beef that up or go back and reteach those things. So it really brought full circle all of the work that we had been already doing in our diocese to revise our standards, and it was so beneficial to really know and understand about this handbook with the goals that we could base our work on.
That's impressive. Just want to say that's impressive how that's all.
It's scary, frankly. I came back to Patty and said, we really need to use these goals. But we had just really kind of completed the work on revising our theology standards. So we have our committee is one of the most committed of our teachers, of our theology teachers. We are just so thankful that they're patient with us and understood that, we are the church. And so sometimes there's a wrench thrown in, we want, I would say wrench, but it was a good wrench, because in the end, we understood really what our goal was and where we needed to go. So, but our committee was very patient, because here we are still working a year and a half later on finalizing these standards, but we're excited about the outcome.
I was just going to ask if you were still working on that. So probably done for the next academic year, same as when the ACRE's done?
This spring. We're going to finalize this spring for rollout next fall. So yeah, we're really excited about that.
Just interesting for parents of Catholic school students or alumni just to know what all's going on behind the scenes and how we really take it seriously, teaching our faith. It's not just, hey, here's catechism, good luck, and the intentionality behind all of what you're doing and what the NCEA is doing. And yes, great work.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you so much.
I think I just want to end by saying, we walk with our students, and all of this work is done behind the scenes, but, building on that whole child. But really it's through God's grace. We pray at some point in their lives, they'll have that encounter, that personal encounter with Jesus Christ because of but we really hope that because of the background we've given them, that we're planting seeds, that sometime in their life that will come to fruition. So we're excited about this work and how it will affect our schools and our students and teachers.
Beautiful.
It definitely sounds like it's being developed into a tool that can be used with a little bit more effectiveness and maybe direction than in the past. So that's excellent to hear about.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us. I know how devoted you and the whole Catholic Education Office and all those teachers and administrators are to just helping our schools be the best that they can be, and really intentional about that faith component as well, and introducing and guiding children on their relationship with Christ. So thanks for all of your work and everything that you do, and for just giving us that glimpse into this process, all these things that happen behind the scenes that we might not know about.
Thank you for allowing me to share. It's exciting.
And thank you all for listening to today's Illuminating Catholics and learning more about this component of Catholic education. New episodes drop each Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts, the Diocese of Sioux City's YouTube channel, or at lumenmedia.org.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.